Hello and welcome back to FPF TV. It is Unite round in the A-Leagues and it is the final game of the dub round 4. A grand final rematch between Sydney FC and Melbourne City. It's sure to be a cracking match with some narratives all over the pitch. But before we get to all the action, first and foremost, I got to introduce my wonderful co-host here, all the way from Western Australia. It is the great Matt Olsen. Matt, how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, technical gremlins have caused a bit of a ruckus, and I don't even mean with getting this set up as much as I mean the fact that my microphone is broken and no longer works. So, yeah, not the greatest spot to be coming to you from, but really excited for this crucial clash in which we hope Sydney FC can really finally get themselves up and running in a meaningful way against an opposition of this caliber in Melbourne City.
Well, I think that's more just like you hope they get up and running this season because of some predictions you made in the preview podcast and also doubled down on FPF TV when we did preview the dub after our round 1 scheduled match, I believe, as well. And currently they are making you look a fool, for lack of a better term.
Yes, this is correct. So really just looking forward to seeing how they can make an account of themselves today, let's say.
Yeah, and rescue your predictions. Yeah, the technical gremlins did come out on this Sunday afternoon. I think everyone is a bit tired, and I think Zoom is a bit tired from this wonderful football carnival that is Unite round. So, as you can see, not the smoothest of transitions, but the show must go on. The FPFT must go on because what would the Australian football community do without FPF TV? I don't know, Olsen.
No, exactly. What are we going to do but hope for a wonderful day of reacting to really, hopefully, a good contest? And I'm not just saying that because of everything I put on the line, but really, hopefully, I mean, these are the two more successful teams in the history of the competition, and you know, realistically, with how it's set up, you know, Sydney FC are a team that expect nothing but the best. So, really, for them to get up and show an account of themselves is the narrative here. Also, if Melbourne City establish their dominance, they are going to be just about unopposed at the top of the table at this stage, and the stakes on the game is massive. But we'll see how it goes. Ultimately, with this whole kind of Unite round setup that we've had, this is probably the one big game that I think a lot of Dub fans would want to be in the house for. So hopefully it's not too kind of dire of an occasion in terms of the stadium mostly being empty. I hope that obviously the people that are there show up and make some real noise for a good game on paper, a really good game on paper.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of Sydney FC fans in the house. Maybe not so many Melbourne City fans as the men's team weren't invited along to Unite round. Sad face. But it's been a good football carnival so far. But let's go to the game at hand and let's have a look at the visitors first before we get into the Sydney FC lineup. So Melina Mures in goal with Carly Roastbakken, Taylor Otto, Rebecca Stott, and Apostolakis in the defensive line. Fernandez, Hughes, Policina, and Davidson round out the midfield with Bosch and Harvey up front. Matt, what are you liking from Michael Machiziani's Melbourne City squad? There we go. Got me the pronunciation there quickly.
Yeah, look, you'd have to look at the likes of Policina and Speckmeyer to really add that extra oomph going forward. Lourdes Bosch has been terrific so far, so keen to see her, really be a presence that can remain a consistent threat. We want it to be a high-intensity game. She's a kind of key player that you'd look out for in that regard. At the back, again, players like Rossback and Stotty, a lot of experience there, so just expecting a lot of stability throughout, and a team that, has been playing a lot because of their influence in Asia before the season started as well. So, yeah, clear as day for me, a very, very good team, and Sydney are really going to be tested by it for sure.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, Speckmeyer, as I've got the team list in front of me, doesn't be on there unless there's a naming error. I could be wrong. It's Catherine Harvey up front with Bosch. Looks like
is Speckmeyer playing on the wing? That's what I've got in front of me.
I've got Fernandez, but That's what SofaScore's telling me. I've got it up in front of me.
Well, I'm using FootMob, so this is interesting. So we've got two.
we've got two different lineups. Look, let's put that on the back burner. Have a look at Sydney FC's lineup. Hopefully, all the names are lining up there, and we will get some confirmation on on those lineups, because it could well and truly be like a different sort of naming. Something, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, Paramount are about to tell us anyway, right? So
we'll clarify that. Let's go to Sydney FC. Brianna Edwards starts in goals with Faye Brightson, Jordan Thompson, Natalie Tobin, and Tori Tuamuth in the defensive line, with Mackenzie Hawkesby, Hannah Lowry, and Madeline Caspers filling out the midfield, as it says on SofaScore, with Princess Abini, Shay Connors, and Indiana Dos Santos up front for Ante Urich's side. Obviously, some pretty well-tested attacking dangers for Sydney FC. The Melbourne City defence, even though the Sydney squad hasn't scored a lot of goals in the dub this season thus far, will still have to have their wits about them, won't they, Matt?
Yeah, but I think the biggest issue with Sydney FC, to be honest with you, is just this midfield pack. They really ought to sort it out. The Millie Farrow option clearly hadn't been working out, so they've decided to go with Abini and DeSantos in support of Shay Connors, which I can respect that. I think Millie Farrow's recruitment ended up kind of going a bit awry with what the role actually was that she expected to play. But really, when we're looking at Caspers, Mackenzie Hawkesby and Hannah Larry there, they've really actually struggled to put the full product together and actually understand the role that each player is playing and how that's going to ultimately be in support of that forward pack. And it's unlike Ante Juric to get so absolved by his plan. It's really not in his DNA to do that. So for me, they've really got to decide what's going on there, and it looks like the formation is set up much the similar way as in recent weeks where it's failed as well. So yeah, I'd be actually really keen to see what's going to be done there to address that, because someone like Anna Larry's maybe better off playing a bit more of an anchor, a bit deep, and then Hawkesby's positioning feels a little bit unnatural as well, and we don't know how much of an impact Abini and Dos Santos end up having in terms of how deep they end up going, playing in the wider positions as well, and ultimately Shay Connors as the 9 has to be someone that can be really reliable and clinical as well, and we just don't know how much of that we're going to see. So let's hope that this is actually a bit more of a consistent performance. Otherwise, it might be much the same going into it, which would be unfortunate. And I'm just getting a look at the Paramount lineup here. Mariana Speckmeyer.
So just on that, Seb O'Neill in the YouTube comments, thank you very much, Seb, for joining us, has clarified that MSS stands for Mariana Speckmeyer, for Mariana Sophia Speckmeyer Fernandez is her full name. So SofaScore has definitely tried to trip me up there, and very successfully. So, good work. Thanks for embarrassing me in front of my good friend Seb, because it's just the professionality on this show is really eroding at this point.
Okay, I'm looking this up now because I'm actually very curious.
I should know that with my nickname Juan Dos Galinas. I should really know this. These extended names, as the players are ready to take the pitch and kickoff is about to get underway in this grand final rematch in the dub. Spectacular.
Mariana Sophia Speckmeyer Fernandez.
And Seb also. Yeah, he's got it.
Fernandez is in the wing.
It's look, I mean, I was afraid that I had clicked on like a previous match of Melbourne City versus Sydney FC, and just hadn't noticed of it because I should have caught you the first time when you're actually reading the lineup out and you said Fernandez. I should have been like, who the fuck is that? Oh, goodness me. It's really all happening now. And it looks like there is a decent crowd. They just did a quick pan of the stands and looked like there were plenty of blue shirts under that cover. It is a disgustingly hot day in Sydney. I have to say that quietly. So all who have attended, and then also the players especially, being out in that sort of weather, kudos. They often don't get the rubbly green Australian footballers. Needless to say, the women's competition when it comes to football suitable weather. But Just like FPF TV, the show must go on. And kickoff is just about to get underway. Jake Holub, fellow FPF contributor via Facebook. Hannah Lowry in brackets GOAT hat trick today, Matt. Are you gonna na or na?
Look, if Perth ended up getting the 3 points against Canberra, I would have, nah. But now that they're in ninth, and now Sydney, taking the points, maybe does, not really impact that at all. I guess there's less excitement and less of an edge to it, because ultimately, if she'd knocked Glory out of the 6, I kind of would have been happy on both ends to have Glory, at least sitting 7th, and to have, the story of her knocking Perth out, and both teams rising up the ladder would have been ideal. But yeah, when we're not in that situation anymore, so now I don't really care who's scoring the goals. I just guess I'm pretty keen on a Sydney win here, just to restore some of those ridiculous predictions.
Well, to be fair to you, it is a squad that is underperforming by a few pegs, to be honest. Like, when you look at their lineup, it is, on paper, one of the best lineups in the league. And that's undoubtable. Indisputable.
As I said, it's just the issues with actually how the midfield is in support of their kind of forward pack, and it doesn't really seem to me as though they have any idea what is going on in that respect. I mean,
City are able to get on the attack here, cleaned up at the back by Sydney FC. I just noticed it even in that phase of play. The defender, it sort of sets up as a 3, are really stretched at times, and there's a lot of gaps that teams can exploit quite easily, and that's what the Mariners did really, really well in round 1, I thought, especially with their pacey attack. They are able to get forward fairly quickly, and the gaps between the defenders in the midfield have also been exploited by teams in recent rounds. So I think that really, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, I think what Sydney might need to do is try and press a little bit higher with their defensive line and almost squeeze those gaps, make teams such as the likes of even Melbourne City, as they're on the attack here, chance maybe as the ball's cleared away from Sydney FC. What was that?
Sorry. The back heel. The
back heel.
I didn't actually see what it was.
I might be slightly ahead of you there. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was recommenting, but yeah, I feel like they're not quite pressing high enough to support the formation that they're trying to play. That's just something that I've seen in recent weeks. That's a really good...
That's Catherine Harvey, so they're just replaying it on my end.
Yeah.
No, sorry,
it was a delicious back heel. Delicious.
Yeah, no. Let me just actually confirm who that was.
There was actually one. I think it was. Was it Laura Allen yesterday in the Newcastle Jets Western United? Back heel towards Sheridan Gallagher, and Sheridan Gallagher just couldn't quite get a hold of the shot. That was a brilliant phase of play. There's been some really terrific
inclusion she's been. They've had the conversation with her about what she wants to do when the NRL season came to an end, and the fact that she so happily jumped back into football and then immediately had a huge impact for the Jets. It's very exciting. Sydney coming close there.
Yeah, very close. That was a really nice phase of play, getting forward and had to be on your toes there. It's actually a really, really good save, the ball clattering around there.
I want to say it was Casper's with the shot there.
Yeah, it looked like Casper's. Seb O'Neill via YouTube, calling out Christian Marchetti. Too good to be on here this week. Typical. Well, I'll leave the assessments of character to you, Seb. I'm not going to go and make fun of my fearless leader, which is a lie. He's just not here to defend himself, and that's a bit of a low blow. And he's also coming saying he's watching the pre-game of the Auckland vs Macarthur match, and says that Francis de Vries looks and sounds like a ginger Guy Montgomery. Oh, you gotta love that. That's some good value right there. Speaking of sounds, gotta give a shout out to Cody Ojadi, who made his comms debut today for the collective on Mixer. Really enjoyed the call by the entire team. The Canberra and Perth Glory match ended in 1-1. The earlier match of Jubilee in the dub was an excellent call, I'd like to say. Some really knowledgeable heads in there, and for someone who hasn't followed the dub quite as closely as maybe you, Matt, or definitely Cody and yourself, I quite enjoyed the analysis of both sides. So congratulations, Cody. And it was also his
and
birthday
also
the other day.
not just Cody as well. Our new front bench dub host Annabelle
Yes.
was. I'm not sure if she was alongside him, but I know that she was on the commentary for that same brand as well. The collective. Sorry if I forget their name, but
Yeah, the
yeah, they
collective
obviously
media, mate.
yeah,
Look,
I'm not sure.
I
They've
do
obviously done.
apologise. I do
Yeah,
apologise.
done.
All the calls from the Unite round, I've listened to a few in the last couple of weeks, have been absolutely excellent in terms of
Neil Simons
content.
and Jude Dolan were involved with some of the earlier games as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, yeah, all class, all class.
Some really excellent stuff coming out of there. So big shout outs. And also, if you haven't... Oh, and there's a goal! Sydney FC have taken the lead.
I'll tell you
What a
what, it's
strike!
a very, very messy structure. But the keeper was absolutely stranded there. That is exactly, was it Mackenzie Hawkesby?
McHawkesby. And you just can't give her the space at the outside of the box.
I don't love it. It's not the most convincing methodology there. There was a lot of hit and hope and a lot of players
That's
running
a sumptuous
wide.
strike. I know.
That's exactly what you need.
Well, I mean, that's sometimes what you got to do. You get your head down, get your boot through the ball, and Sydney FC taking an early lead here. Matt Olsen is certainly happy, and I'm happy to see a goal of a quality of like that. There's been some really spectacular goals in the Unite round, and that's certainly one of them. Fantastic for Sydney FC as they go up 1-0 against Melbourne City at Jubilee. Wow. Really something out of nothing there as well. Quite surprising.
Yeah, but this is what I kind of allude to. I don't know that Sydney really get what they're doing going forward, and you just have that hit and hope situation like that, and they're able to really kind of come into the game. It's a huge surprise.
Absolutely.
So you can hope that with them definitely being far more in control of their possession, that they're able to really get some structure going here in terms of how each player is really being utilised. But that,
Well, see,
this is
where, and you know, again, this might be a call, but if I'm Ante Juric, I'm having maybe, you know, the forward line sitting a little bit deeper just to condense a little bit, because they're still very open through the midfield and the back line.
Yes.
And even though they've taken the lead here, and to be honest, they haven't looked very leaky except for that early advance by Melbourne City. I'm still really not convinced. Like, the midfield presses without the defenders, and that's something that's really concerning and something that I've noticed in recent weeks. So I think that Juric, you know, there's also not a lot of experience on that bench of, you know, the likes of Shea Holman, Abby Lemon, and also Luchmeyer and Talon Henniker, like, not a lot of A-League women's experience there at all. So it's all about how you're going to do it. I'd be interested to see if maybe Shea Holman in the second half, if they can manage to keep up this lead, when the game they're looking to just get the 3 points, move on to the next round. If maybe Shea Holman comes on for the likes of DeSantos and you see Abini and Shea Holman actually drop just into the midfield as like out-and-out midfielders instead of high wingers, and try and cut off those spaces as tired legs start to set in. But that's yet to be seen.
I think really though, that point about the press and a lot of those gaps in the midfield, they do seem very, very open, and more so the transition as well. The transition as a result ends up being a really, really messy, and that's how you end up with players really looking a bit out of shape constantly. I find that front third in particular end up wildly out of shape at times.
And I know we're being a little bit critical of a team in front, but it is very unlike an Ante Juric team. Like,
no, this is what I mean. Like, it's just
it's so out of character, because Ante Juric is a very, very shrewd, you know, operator when it comes to tactics and how he sets up his teams. There's a strike from range. easily gathered there at the back. But I'm so used to seeing Ante Juric, having a very, very clear identity, a very, very clear structure, and extremely disciplined in their structure for a number of years now. That's led to obviously multiple championships, and to not see that, it's like that's why I kept coming back to it, because it's ultimately very surprising, and it is. I know it's only 4 weeks into the season, but you rarely see Sydney FC start, faltering. It hasn't been for a great number of years, but they have, to be fair, gone through a bit of upheavals. The shot comes in, and Edwards can't hold it, and that's in the back of the net. And Melbourne City have equalised.
Lourdes Bosch. She's she's really just had a hit and hope there, and I'm not even sure what you can say on the quality of the keeping for that one. That is.
It looked like Edwards couldn't really, a bit caught off her line and just couldn't decide if she was trying to palm it away or trying to claim it.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of an indecisive moment, and it's 1-1. I said I was disappointed. I think I might have messaged Christian. I might have messaged the group chat. I have not seen my weekly injection of chaotic dub 4-3, worldies all over the park, or non-worldies all over the park, and the final game of the round so far is delivering what I watch the dub for, which is those chaotic games. All right, it's in the DNA of that league. So, I feel sorry for Brianna Edwards there, but I'm enjoying it.
No, she was too far advanced. The ball came at such a heightened pace that it's really just completely conflicted with how she had approached it. But again, if the fact that she's decided to go out with the one kind of stretched palm as opposed to actually just trying to capture the ball there was a very, very confusing decision. And that's not really going to help anyone. That is really disappointing. Looking at it on review, an incredible strike from Bosch. Don't take anything away from her, but also
well, you got to buy a
ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've got to buy a ticket, as they say, and look, it wasn't the most convincing strike, and obviously not the most convincing goalkeeping, but look, as a keeper, you definitely have to deal with those. Let's not take anything away. Brianna Edwards will be kicking herself from conceding that chance. But
I've also noticed that, though, as the tempo slowed down now, Melbourne City are really becoming the dominant side with a lot of those issues we were just speaking about. The tide has turned so quickly here. Sydney are in strife if they don't really get something going.
They need to definitely tighten up, and that's something that's echoed in the YouTube comments by Seb O'Neill. Machiani ball fire emojis. It is delightful to watch. It has been delightful to watch for the first 4 weeks of this season. Thoroughly enjoyed watching Melbourne City. They're often, very, very impressive. Obviously, again, one of the best teams on paper, and their bench as well. To have the likes of Briley Henry, Letitia McKenna, Shelby McMahon to come on, TJ. It's just something that most programs in this league would die for. To have the experience that they have both in the starting lineup and at the back. Obviously, some international stars. The likes of Rebecca Stott, and some young up and comings. That will, I think, definitely be a part of Matilda squads heading into the future. So it is 1-1 as Hawkesby tries to get forward there, giving away the foul in just about 35 yards out from the Melbourne City goal. And we do have some Matildas action coming up during the week. Obviously, it's a international friendly time. The first friendly against Brazil on, correct me if I'm wrong, Thursday night? It's either Thursday or Tuesday. I get my T's mixed up all the time.
I'd have to double check it as well. Not being as glued into the women's international break, mostly because they were friendlies, but obviously aware that they've sent a ginormous squad to constantly rotate, and they'll be playing Brazil and obviously Chinese Taipei as well.
Yeah, some really surprising inclusions into that squad, but looking forward to seeing a few new faces, and obviously looking forward to see all the Tilly's favourites. They I think,
I
recovered.
mean, look, having a lot of those A-League stalwarts make a debut for the Matildas will be really meaningful and really, really exciting. I think for the caliber of opponent, for the direct schedule ahead of the Asian Cup, playing someone like Hung Chu Min's Chinese Taipei, I think it's a really, really exciting prospect. And both of those games in Victoria, they'll probably be fairly routine wins. And I don't want to disrespect and take away from what they've kind of built, because ultimately they got knocked out to Paraguay on penalties in the World Cup playoff in Hamilton. They came over here for the Olympics. That game at Opera Stadium against Iran, I was there and been in camp with the Taipei team and spoken a lot about their expectations. And I think it really just boils down to wanting a lot more consistency and wanting the match minutes as well. So they're a very, very solid team to be coming up against, one that is probably capable of being at the quarterfinals at an Asian Cup. So not the worst team to come up against, but also one that realistically, I mean, even with some of that A-League talent, I'd expect, comfortably 3 or more goals in the game from the Matildas. The choice of Geelong as the other venue, I'm also very kind of skeptical about. But
Yeah, it's a dubious. Obviously, we're seeing A-League matches take place there. Western United, having it as one of their homes before, obviously committing to Ironbark Fields now this season. However, they haven't versed another Melbourne-based side in that stadium as of yet in the men's competition. But yeah.
Well, they did. No, they did. They got like 10 or 15,000 against Victory there in like COVID times.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, sorry, I said that they've committed to Ironbark, but they have not versed any other
At Ironbark
based sides.
Yeah,
and a chance here for Sydney in behind and just cleared away. That's some really good defending from Melbourne
and
City.
that's exactly what we've needed from that press from Sydney as well.
Absolutely,
that is exactly what's been required.
Really nice. It's just like it was very. It's such an apathetic press. It's such a passive press. Yeah. It's almost like going through the motions, go up, come back, without really any intensity or purpose. And I think that's something that we're starting to see a little bit more purpose. I just wanted the Santos to go Jonigo Bonito with the volley there. Like, seriously, just like, give it to me. Inject it into my veins,
But I think you can also agree there is that it still does look very unstructured. It almost looks like it's a bit random with how these players are positioning. And
absolutely.
Abini on the left-hand side looks a total mess. Like, I don't know what's going on there. But there's a good kind of aggression to it, and that was very, very smart from Hawkesby to kind of catch on and create the chance, right? At least the chance has been created. So it's a step in the right direction, but I think it's still a bit of a worry.
Absolutely. I kind of agree. I feel like that Dos Santos and Abini are playing on the wrong sides. I think that, like, Dos Santos is obviously really comfortable on her right foot, but she does have that ability to cut in and make some really incisive dribbling, and it's something that I don't think Abini has in a lock. I think Abini is a little bit more direct in the way that she runs. She doesn't invert quite as comfortably as Dos Santos. But yeah, it's just something I would personally like to see as the ball is swung in by Sydney, and it's just bobbling around in the box, and Melbourne City able to get away from it. I think it might be a foul.
Gee, sounds like going around the grounds. It sounds like MacArthur on the front foot a bit against Auckland to start, which is a very, very big surprise.
Yeah, I haven't caught up with the score lines of the men's matches, but it is surprising. Is the score 1-0 MacArthur, or is it...
No. It's still 0-0.
The general vibe of the thing.
Yes. I am only looking at an app, so it's hard for me to completely confirm, but yeah.
Well, I think MacArthur surprised a lot, that sort of loss against the Newcastle Jets.
Calmania, mate. Millet Stajowski ball.
Millet.
It's Calmania.
Yeah. Well, who knows? With the Western Sydney Wanderers not doing too well, there might be another team that's best in the West. Huh?
That's it.
I love the banner down there. It's officially renamed the Kyle.
The Grasshead. the Karakuni Cross Olympico end.
So, Sharnan via Facebook. I'm gonna try and do my best to I don't know, make peace with this comment because I don't know if I actually understand it. But it goes, as it's 1-1, I have one question for one, just a hypothetical one. As the Wonder Kid, the Rising, no 1-1. One wonders, should one only win one in 1 year? Would one want to have won that one in round 1-1?
Okay, I know the background of this. This was an Australian prankster during the, I think, 2002 Australian F1 Grand Prix, where Juan Pablo Montoya was doing an interview, and this prankster from like Radio Network or wherever he was from asked that question to Juan Pablo Montoya, and everyone burst out laughing, and it was really funny.
Wait, so now that my nickname, now I've been affectionately known as Juan Dos Colina, so I'm going to be leveled with this sort of slander from Shah. That's going to be I'm going to look forward to that, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure I just had a brain aneurysm just trying to read that out, but we move on.
It's touching on some niche areas, that's all I'll get at. It was a funny joke.
Seb, chime in with that conversation. It was a part of the Chasers' war on everything.
There you go.
No, I was saying. That's what he believes, anyway. Look, I'll leave that to Seb and Shah to confirm. You guys seem a little bit more knowledgeable.
Well, both of us were extremely young at the time, and I don't think it's a bit of an older joke for the two of us. I think it's fair to say, Jack.
I also think I've watched maybe 5 minutes in passing of an F1 race. Other than that, I do not pay attention to it.
Or the Chasers' war on everything. To be honest, I think it's.
What is the Chasers' war on everything? I don't know what that is.
I believe it was just like a like comedy show that was popular in Australia at the time, but it was before our time.
Right. Okay. As Sydney are able to break forward here, and the cross goes in, and it's safely taken there by Mirez in goal for Melbourne City.
To touch on our earlier point, though, I think what we're seeing from Sydney that's better is the intent and the aggression. The intent and the aggression are really of the standard required to play a team like Melbourne City. It's just the system.
Well, it's this pressing with purpose now that is really good to see, especially against a team like Melbourne City. You'd think after the sort of lack of form that Sydney have been able to produce in the last 3 rounds, it might have been a little bit more timid. Especially coming up to definitely, probably the out-and-out favourite to take the lead at this point in the season. I know it's very early on, but they've certainly produced the most in the A-League Women's. So, look, it's refreshing, I got to say, because the first 3 rounds have been, left a lot to be desired of from Sydney. As a cross is able to come in, it's still in the box, maybe a chance can be fashioned here, goes out. Sydney FC have won a corner. And some really incisive passing down that right-hand side. The combinations of, the likes of Caspers, DeSantos, Tumeth down that right-hand side are really coming together.
Just frustrating to watch. Because the pieces aren't really clicking here. And the chance creation has been brilliant. It's just really not sure where a second goal is going to come from at this rate. It's getting a bit annoying.
Well, to be fair to Sydney, they are, I think, getting into their opponent's box just a little bit more than previous weeks. Definitely an improvement.
That corner that Hannah Lowry's just had is despicable. Jesus Christ.
That was really bad. There's been a few, I feel like with the corners, I don't know if it's like something to do with the wind, because it kind of, in like Jubilee, like the wind comes off the water, and especially from that side, I've noticed from that end of Jubilee Park that some of the deliveries have been actually quite shocking for the entire round. So I don't know if that's like just where the direction of the wind's coming from. The sea out in Cogra is on like that opposite side towards, Botany, Port-ish, Sansuki, I don't know. I'm from
Yeah,
Leichhardt.
no, I know what you mean. I think it is a very open air stadium as well, so you're just naturally going to get a fuck ton of breeze
To
that kind of
be
brushes
fair, the
through.
wind was swirling around Allianz on Friday night, almost to the point where I needed some sort of jumper, which was considering the day that I was in Sydney. I think there was almost 30 degrees. I did not prepare. I did not prepare for the southerly change of Sydney, but you know, maybe it shows my lack of preparedness because I've lived here for 5 years, so I should know by now. As Sydney FC are able to win a foul, Hannah Lowry there just getting pushed over by Policina. Seb O'Neill via YouTube. MacArthur could probably have two by now. German missing a sitter of a header. Well, sucked in,
Auckland.
I
So
guess.
it's their first time in their first time in Australia, and they look like they're being handed to a little bit from this.
It's almost like there was a few predictions on that almighty you know Kiwi de Classico, Kiwi Classico stream from the likes of you and Christian that maybe
Why
predicted
does
some of this.
Kalenos pulling up the Kiwi de Classico on
Kiwi
us?
de Classico, de Classico de Kiwi. I'm just naming shit now. I'm just making shit up.
Oh goodness!
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. I knew it was going to be fun. Not a lot of people around. Everyone out enjoying your night round. A few FPF contributors seen bouncing around Sydney. The likes of Antonis Pagonis and Christian Marchetti around.
No, it sounds like they've had a lovely weekend. To be fair,
And obviously, as we mentioned before, Kariojeda down at Jubilee on comms for the previous match. I'm not sure if they got comms for this match. I did not check the lineup because
I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check Annabelle Banfield's Instagram because she might be doing two. I don't know if Cody's going to do the second one with her.
And
Just give me a second.
Gotta say, what a signing. Thoroughly enjoyed the sort of inaugural episode of the dub a few weeks ago with a new contributor on there. It was fantastic, good listening. Always enjoy Front Page Dub. Go check it out on Spotify and Apple Music. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's probably there.
Yeah, she's definitely doing this one, and Cody
Is having an ice cream?
probably.
Look, I have to say, I did put on my story, which is I don't allow people on my Instagram just because you got my Twitter, you got my Facebook, leave me alone. But yesterday was dangerous to be a $10 ice cream from the ice cream truck. Absolutely.
You're making me want ice cream now, Jack.
Well, there is always a time for ice cream. As Hawksby's able to slide it through, De Santos called offside though, going a bit early. Decent effort from an obtuse angle, even though it was called back for the offside. And
the shot was the final shot was questionable.
She wasn't that far offside. She was almost, at Cogra Station, but that's okay.
What's the because I've been to Cogra, the pub that everyone kind of joins on the kind of walkway through to the stadium. I think is it something to do with Carlton, because Carlton's the suburb that's technically.
I wanted to clarify. You actually, if you want to go to Cogra Jubilee Stadium, don't get off at Cogra. You get off at Carlton. It's much closer. It's about a block away. And I made that mistake a few years ago. I think when the Newcastle Jets were taking on Sydney FC whilst Allianz was still under renovations. They were splitting time between Jubilee and Leichhardt Oval. And happenstance, I made that mistake and ended up being there 10 minutes post kickoff, which, just for a young, passionate Newcastle fan was cry yourself to sleep at night sort of territory. I'm pretty sure we ended up losing that game anyway, so I probably didn't miss much. It's sort of faded out a little bit less romantic. Yeah. Both teams. I'm just looking out. There might be a drinks break soon. I'm not sure why they haven't, if they've already called a drink
Goodness.
spake. I feel like they've been calling drink spakes around the 30th minute or 25th.
Hawksby's not happy.
No. If you wanted to take that one quickly, but City players in the way.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I have noticed that Hawksby, Lowry, and Caspers have been fouled a fair bit. So the precision on that is very, very kind of noticeable, and honestly like a testament to the way Sydney are kind of playing, where they're kind of a bit stagnant and kind of letting the game flow a certain way once it kind of goes into that central area. But it also has a negative to it in that it highlights just how unstructured they are, because every time they get those players on the ball, there should be that path to kind of distribute the ball out to, create that attacking option, keep it ticking over, and it stops. Every time the ball goes into those central areas, it stops.
It stops, and I think, again, like, it's something that I alluded to earlier, and it's just a very inconsistent press and a very inconsistent way they move in transition. Their wingers are almost too far forward, right on the last shoulder of the defender, where De Santos and Ebeni's a little bit more directed to De Santos, but especially De Santos, like, and there's a chance just cleaned up in there by Mires off the corner, but it almost I feel like that De Santos especially is really good in those areas when she comes, drops in, takes the ball, able to turn, pivot, and then work it up the pitch a little bit more incisively. They're playing very stretched when they don't need to be playing as stretched as they are. Especially with the quality of player, it's almost a tactic that is reminiscent of a team with not that much quality, as De Santos is able to get down the byline, just can't get the quality of ball in there, and it's cleaned up. And
back by press was how that chance was created yet again.
And it could be another chance. The ball swung in, and Amires has to be alive to that one. Hannah Lowry trying to maybe dip it into that back post as City transition very, very quickly. And here comes City. Maybe to try and take the lead. And that's a really good tackle. That is a really good tackle. Just to get a toe in there and stop the play. But like you said, it's that press that created that chance as well. And it's coming together.
And the follow up as well. It's I'll tell you what, this is I'm really feeling the tension here. I don't know about you. This is it's really kind of picked up.
Oh, yeah.
Good intensity.
As soon as we went, it's slowed down a little bit. And 30 seconds later, okay.
you know it's good when there's just like an awkward bit of silence between us just to kind of watch those passages of play.
Sharnum via Facebook. I really love the fact that before Matt gave context, Jack, without question, read out my comment no matter how mentally deranged it seems. I wonder if he queried whether or not I had drunk paint this morning. We all make mistakes, Sean. Sometimes, they put jelly beans on the paint can. What else are you supposed to do when they do that sort of advertising? You know what I'm going to? There's like wattle paint cans. They used to, when you buy like 3.
Is that a thing they typically do at Christmas time? Like,
No. So it used to be a deal. I feel like it was like maybe a Home Timber Hardware or Bunnings thing. But if you bought 3 cans of paint, you get a 4th can of paint filled with jelly beans.
My dad, growing up, my dad was a house painter, and so we would have the tins with jelly beans all the time.
Oh right, so yeah, you grew up on that.
But I actually always thought it was a Christmas thing. I don't know why.
I'm pretty sure like there was a deal, like just a standing deal from Models Paints for a very, very long time. That if you bought 3 cans of paint, Jesus Christ, this is so ironic. But it's like this is a very exciting dub game. There's no way we should be talking about paint right now.
No, but we can. If you want to, you want to go back to a discussion about pipes of grass.
And the Santos, no, it's Connor's actually been put into the turf. Not slowing up, definitely contesting that. Wow. Well, we're seeing Sheridan Gallagher come back to the A-League. Maybe Mires might get a call up from a future, I don't know, Melbourne Storm A-League. Oh, sorry, not A-League. NRL women's.
That was a pretty tough challenge. Shay Connors is okay though.
John Twohill, my father, via via Facebook to clarify that conversation. It was an Easter promo by Dulux.
Easter, there you
There we
go. I
go.
knew it
There
was
we go.
something like that.
It's gonna bug me for the next, for ages. That was gonna be my next Google search, I'm sure. And just around the ground score update, Guillermo Mai has scored for Auckland. So it looks like all of that early pressure from MacArthur hasn't paid off in dividends, and Auckland have taken a lead at Allianz.
This
As we
is so
saw,
curious.
the other team based in New Zealand, Wellington, was that a 1-0 end result?
It was.
Yes, it
Bit of
was
revenge from the semi-final.
Yes, Costa Barbarouses getting on the score sheet there. He's having a wonderful season again, Costa Barbarouses. He's really just aging as fine wine. He's been moved centrally as like a centre striker, and he's just really, you know, embraced that role for Wellington Phoenix.
So we've got Auckland 4-0-0 with 6 scored and 0 conceded.
Wow.
And this is a game. This is a game where it's their first time in Australia. They're on the back foot a little bit, and I mean this is quite incredible, really. Steve Corica, props to him and the project.
I was just gonna say, like, Corica traditionally, like with his teams with Sydney, obviously they had the lion's share of possession in most games, and he's won a couple of championships by dominating matches, but I can't remember Sydney having like just a whole heap of shots on target. They were just extremely efficient in the final third, and rarely gave away missed sitters. Obviously the likes of Bobo in that time. Lafondra, very efficient strikers in the A League.
Just on my Lowry was some good foot skills there. That was all right. Just on MacArthur, I'm not sure if this is the platform to be teeing off about this. We are obviously focusing on the dub today, but the tragedy of Marianapolis essentially finding out he's not eligible for the Socceroos. I think that riled a bit of emotion in me, to be honest, because the more you look into it, the more you realise how flawed the FIFA rules are. It is absolutely disgusting that someone like Lucas Mendes can play for Qatar while Marianapolis is not eligible to represent Australia.
Oh. Well, I mean,
and that
half the Chinese team as well are all nationalised players. Like it's a modern part of the game. I don't understand. Yeah, I really don't understand it because his father.
They're calling out Marianapolis' family history on a technicality because they were all Croatian born, despite the fact that his father's a dual citizen. He holds an Australian passport.
Yeah.
But yet you've got blokes who signed a contract to go and play in Qatar who are now eligible for their national team. Where's the lack of, there's a total lack of consistency and transparency in that. It's fucking disgusting.
Just talking about like FIFA nationalisations, the calls for Kayla Morrison to get a Matildas call up, and they've been trying to call her up for a very long time, and FIFA's been standing in the way actively of that as well, just in the women's context. So it is contextually, valuable. That because it does have a A-League W lens to it narratively. Kayla Morrison has been an outstanding performer for Melbourne Victory for a number of years now, and she does hold an Australian passport as well. Is a dual citizen, and she does have the right to play for her country. She's an uncapped American, right? So it just doesn't make any sense. And at the same, and ditto, the Yakula situation, which is unfair because he is in the form of his life, and if FIFA weren't actively standing in the way of this process, you could imagine that he would have been called up, or could be called up, in the next qualifying period if he continues this wonderful vein of form.
Yeah.
And he is the prime of his career, prime years, 27, I think he is.
Yes.
Just off memory, and he's entering his prime, which is about a 5 or 6 year period, and you can certainly see his quality for MacArthur. I think that he was, largely misused in Melbourne City. I don't know. Yeah, I agree.
I think he was too, and I also think that his stint in France came at a really bad time in terms of Angers were not a very competitive team, from what I understand, or rather there was too much competition in the team that he was trying to sort of crack into. Fact of the matter is he got a move to the top of French football, so he's not exactly someone that has had a lot of potential wasted over the years as well. But I will actually commend the FA in that they didn't call him up too quickly, because if we were all under the condition that he was eligible as a Socceroo, and then we ended up having to get points taken off us in a table where, second and sixth are split by literally 1 point, that'd have been a disaster, right? So I guess in some ways there was a lot of evaluating to do there, and they've done the right thing. But
even in Europe it seems easier, and I get it, Europe's easier because it's a much more, like very flexible borders in Europe, within the European Isles. But like when you've had players who have, like the likes of Grealish and the likes of Declan Rice, that's who I was thinking of, who have actually played for another national team, fully capped, and not just one or two, multiple caps, maybe not in competitive fixtures, and not breaking the FIFA rules that go on and play for England. Like, it's not, it is a disgrace. Like, it's offensive, because, like I'm saying, is like, Declan Rice and Jack Grealish, whilst they do have, like, obviously links to the English Isles, effectively they are Irish, and they played for Ireland first. So, yeah, it's a bizarre.
And I think the biggest thing that really upsets me though is that the Yakelis family wanted him to play for Australia. They identify as being part Australian, and like again, it's all well and good having naturalized guys who have played in the league for 3, 4, 5 years, like we see throughout Asia. I'm not sitting here saying I'm against Lucas Mendes or Ty Browning or any of these players who've gone on to represent countries in the Middle East. Exactly, just be fucking consistent. Because at the end of the day, you've got a bloke whose father came out and said when he signed for Melbourne City, I want him to represent Australia. And you're actively denying him the chance. It's ridiculous.
It's yeah.
I'm sorry. I just needed to get that off my chest on a public.
No, but it is a very a good conversation to have, and it is relevant.
And the Kayla Morrison point
as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Has Kayla Morrison actually been included in that extended 36-player squad?
I think she's been included, but there's some issues with FIFA regarding paperwork. That's the last I heard of it. But the Matildas have been trying to call her up for that long, like a very long time, and it's always been paperwork, right? Ever since she became a citizen, a naturalized citizen, they've been trying to call her up, and FIFA have stood in the way. Whether they haven't pushed through her call up because of clerical mishaps or whatever goes on in that organization. I mean, who knows? To be honest,
well, I just at that point, I'd put my foot down and apply for some sort of exemption, especially in the Yakelis case. The Morrison case, I'm even more baffled by, to be honest, because she's been playing here long enough. Like, well, what is actually the hold up? I'd put our foot down.
As us in the FC are able to get in behind here and win a corner, Hawkesby.
If Yakelis ends up winning like the Johnny Warren medal or something, I'd straight up just say to FIFA, like, this is fucked. What are you doing?
Well, yeah, it's also equally frustrating when Australia have tried to call up players who, for lack of a better term, are exploring their options when it comes to their modern globalist passports. To put it that way. And there's a chance, and it's just parried away. Oh. It's gone out for another corner. Mirez, I think it was, just getting the touch there. That sent it past the post. Oh, dropping it, actually. Not quite coming out and claiming it.
Mirez, I tell you what, if that went in, I probably would have been able to call that a foul on Mirez, because... there
was certainly a lot of contact. And it looks like that end. It's that end again. Like, they just can't seem to deliver it. There must be just a lot of wind. That's just holding up the ball. Difficult. Oh, I know she lost the ball, but like every time I see Dos Santos like dribble the ball, like just the way she's able to move, it's just like always delightful.
Very, very talented player for sure.
Extremely talented, technically gifted. I don't know if this comparison's been made before. It probably has been made before, but she does remind me of Mary Fowler in the way, like she's able to position her body and the technical sort of brilliance on the ball. That's an active comparison. Like, that's the closest comparison I can see from a, current Matilda at the moment, or even previous Matildas. And it's the likes of players that are even in both teams, both the Australian men's and women's teams, we don't see that often. They're sort of once every 10 years sort of players that come through who have that technical ability. So
And
just
and I feel like in the women's game, by comparison, I don't think we waste the potential on some of these players as much as we do in the men's. And granted, there's a wider scope of places you can go with your career and options you have and pressures that people put on you that are bigger and higher expectation. But I feel like in the women's game, we just naturally get a lot of that right when we have a sublime talent. I mean, look at Daniela Gallage. She's now played for the Matildas, doing okay for herself in the Netherlands. Like, objectively, she's just made the correct career choice. I feel like a lot of men's players in her shoes had struggled with that and continue to struggle with it.
yeah, I agree, and I think it's just again. I think it's just a symptom of some of the structural issues we see in Australian football. There's
Yeah.
the freedom to be that technical player. It's not really there in Australia for a number of different reasons. The away Australian teams traditionally like to set up. It's sort of a very narrow tactical mindset, I would say. That's beginning to change. You've seen it in the A-League level, the likes of Giancarlo Italiano coming through as a coach. Even though he hasn't been successful this season, the likes of Zrilic and what he's bringing from a tactical perspective, I feel like those sort of new age coaches will push Australian football into the future in terms of the players that are developed. But for the longest time, I think due to the lack of progress within Australian football, the technically gifted players have been few and far between.
Mm.
But Sydney FC now have a free kick in enemy territory as the time just clicks past 46 minutes. So we're looking like this might be the last kick of the half. And Lowry going for the shot, almost catching Mires off her guard there, just sailing over the crossbar in the end though. And that will be half time. It is 1-1 in this grand final rematch between Sydney FC, Melbourne City, in your night round from Jubilee Stadium down there in Kogarah. It's been a pretty thrilling game thus far. Both teams having some significant chances. Both teams looking now. I would have to say, I think Melbourne City have looked the more organised of the teams, that's for sure, in the way they've transitioned. But I think Sydney FC have had, most of the, decent chances and decent field possession. So, sort of a, successful chaos, I guess, thus far for Sydney FC. Hasn't quite gone wrong there, but we have to see what happens in the second half. Would you say that's a fair analysis?
I think both teams probably just missing those one or two gears that can take the game by the scruff of the neck, but both teams easily capable of winning this the way it's going so far. And I think it's fair to say that we've been pretty entertained by the calibre, the intensity, and both teams really playing towards their strengths at times as well. Even if Sydney have continued to look a little bit lost, definitely seen an improved version of them. So, yeah, bloody excited to crack on and see how the tale unfolds to finish round, hopefully
Yes,
very strong.
absolutely. Well, before we do that, we will take a quick break as the team's going to halftime. It's 1-1 at Jubilee Stadium down there in Kogarah between Sydney FC and Melbourne City. But we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to FPF TV. Second half has just gotten underway with the ball travelling over the Sydney goal line. Of course, I'm joined by Matt Olsen. We had a little bit of a half-time sabbatical there. Matt Olsen was dying for a tea. So,
it's not tea, it's coffee. Stop saying tea.
But it's funny if I say tea. That's the I've got to give the people what they want. And that's Matt Olsen, the tea drinker. I can create a poll.
One day I'll get into it. I reckon in my 40s and 50s I'll be a bit of a tea man, but I've just never liked it.
I'm like neither. I'm just like Red Bull. That's my tea. I have no desire for either. As Melbourne City have started the
That's
second
suspiciously
half.
Deep from Princess Abini. What's she doing at bloody right back?
Well, I think we were talking about this off air. Like I was saying, I think that the wingers need to drop in a little bit more, just to save that space.
Not that deep.
Yeah, not that deep. That's what I mean. I don't know. Maybe it's a change of shape. I have to say.
Actually, looks like they've changed the formation up quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. We'll have to see it in full flight. Then trying to get the ball
It looked
away.
like that was bizarre. It looked like Shea Connors was almost like the sole striking option, as they all kind of went back behind the ball to defend, and then they've kind of gone back out into their more traditional position. This has been a total mess from Sydney. Big chance for City though.
Yeah, I think that City just came across really fast and really just shocked the Sydney FC defence. I think that's actually what's happened, and that's why Abini was so far back. But she looks tired. Just after half time.
They all
very lethargic.
Looked very, very strangely out of position there.
And very lethargic as well, Sydney FC.
Yes.
Actually very similar to how they've been playing the last couple of weeks, this start to the second half, which is concerning as the ball's able to come in. Edwards can't quite catch it. It's blocked down and then eventually cleared out to Princess Abini. Just a quick shout out, Cody Ojeda and Annabelle as well, who are featured on the last front page dub. In comms for the collective, as we assumed. We got confirmation during the halftime break, so shout out to them both. Congratulations on your comms debut for this one. As City are just really helpful ever at the start of the second half. As a chance slightly opened up. Couldn't quite squeeze it past the defensive line. Wow. Sydney really need to recalibrate very quickly.
I don't think they're doing half bad a job at getting a bit of possession here or there, though. But City out of the blocks incredibly well.
Well, there was a substitute, Harvey. Briley Henry is now out for Melbourne City in the halftime break. Obviously, up front, sort of next to Polishina, with Polishina coming a little bit deeper. So maybe the injection of pace and youthful exuberance that they needed. Not to slander Harvey, but Riley Henry is quite the weapon that you can just pull off the bench and chuck on for the second half.
Yeah. No, Briley Henry's a great player. Someone that I really enjoyed watching in her time with the youth national teams as well.
And Beanie trying to get the back.
I think that squad that went to the World Cup in Costa Rica, it was a fucking incredible team that got drawn with an incredibly hard group. Otherwise, they would have done a very, very successful job.
Yeah.
The youth teams for the Matildas, it must be said, they actually have historically done quite poorly. The 17s have never been to the World Cup, which is insane. But that 20s team, that 20s generation was filled with a lot of names that have not only become stalwarts of the league, but also really kind of made their own, making moves to Europe. Galish made a move to Europe. Sarah Hunter at Paris FC. I feel like that's one people always forget about.
She's been really good for Paris FC as well. Let's not beat around the bush. She's been terrific for the Parisians. Who, for those who aren't quite up to date with the Ligue 1 Feminine. They actually are, historically and even in the modern day, are the most dominant women's side in Paris. They're quite a bit better than the PSG side, which is just ironic given the historical dominance of PSG over Paris FC in the men's competition. So something to note there.
And it's also not to really bring this into it, and I understand that I don't really want to be too controversial, but it's worth noting that Paris FC both historically have been really had quite a conservative fan base and had a lot of this kind of influence from a lot of Arab money from Bahrain and places like that, as opposed to not only Paris Saint-Germain's, backing by Qatar, but also Red Star FC, who are the third team in Paris, who are this notoriously communist club, right? And I think it's really funny that Paris FC, of the three, given Paris Saint-Germain are the mega club, Red Star are the progressive one. It's Paris FC that have forged an incredible women's program out of the three. I find that a very, very unique dynamic. Very interesting football club, just in general, a very, very interesting club to follow.
Oh yeah, I think that the Ligue 1 Feminine, as it's called, is just a good league to follow. I can't say I've watched a whole heap of games, but I do check in on those free streams on days when Olympique Lyon are playing to check in on Ellie Carpenter, which
Ellie Carpenter,
is a part of an extremely talented squad. We're dominating Europe up until recently when it came to Champions Leagues. Just the trophy cabinet.
I can't forget the fact that I obviously watched a fair chunk of PSG in pre-season in Perth, of course, where they won the Perth International Cup. They're a team that's definitely, I think, grown a lot more with their program and become a lot better. Their manager
chance for Sydney
is
outside the box, blocked there by the Melbourne City defender. And Postolakis trapped in the corner there, but she does earn the... No, it's been judged a quarter. No, throw-in for Melbourne City, as I predicted. I wasn't sure where the linesman flag was going there for a second. So we can probably expect a little bit of tired legs to come into this half. I think that Melbourne City, in terms of their squad depth, and I think just a bit of fitness as well, probably in better stead than Sydney FC. But it only takes one. This might be a game of moments, as it has been so far. See who decides as De Santos into the box, trying to beat a defender. Still has the ball at her feet, De Santos. Down towards the back post. And just couldn't quite get a hold of it. I think that was Tumeth. No, it was Bryson, in fact, that was trying to bring that one down on the left-hand side there.
Free flowing though, much the intensity's there now. Both teams having their fair amount of chances
City,
as well. The game's really kind of grown.
Almost just getting the ball in the box there. Some really excellent defending
on
the right-hand side by Tumeth to sort of block that. And what a ball by Princess Abini. And Shay Connors with a chance and just straight at Miraz. That was a delightful ball from Princess Abini, just outside of the boot. And I think that Shay Connors rushed that a bit. I think she had a lot more time than she was able to take to try and set herself and get a shot. A little bit disappointing, but a really good ball from Princess Abini in behind.
And Princess Abini's just been caught offside. I think you've actually fallen behind me, Jack.
Oh. My apologies. I will.
Yeah.
I will try to gets back onto equal backing with your stream on this one. But you're right. Both teams definitely coming out with a bit of intensity.
Both teams have created a lot, and that one for Connors. Just go back to it because it was relevant. That one from Shay Connors was probably Sydney's better chance, but I think she didn't really know what she was doing with it as she kind of...
She sort of rushed it.
Yeah, it's very, very odd to see an attacking player look that kind of, I guess, just skeptical of her own abilities.
Especially the one of such quality as Shay Connors as well. She's one of the elite strikers of the competition, But, again, maybe I don't know, experience in the lineup. I'm not too sure. Obviously, she has like a fair bit of A-League W experience in comparison to, obviously the bench of Sydney FC. But I think she rushed it. But anyway, still 1-1, and it's not panic stations at all for Sydney FC. But
I just caught myself having a bit of a look and a bit of a thought about this. And again, I know I'm straying off topic a fair on the program today, but Melbourne City's like next stage after they got through to the finals for the Champions League for the quarterfinals. They've just not even announced the date when that's going to be drawn. How bizarre is that? There's no
that's sort of Asian women's football for you, isn't it? And that's actually sort of the apathetic approach to Asian competition that we're seeing from a lot of A-League clubs historically as well, which is odd. I think we've all said it, at least in the media community and a fair bit online, that there's not a lot of prestige put on these competitions, even in the men's arena, and it's to the detriment of Australian football. And Hawkesby,
to be fair, I think the Champions League, and Champions League 2, and even the Challenge League, which is now the third tier, that kind of rebranding and the kind of what they've done with the competitions as a whole has probably made it far more appealing to the neutral audience and far more interesting to follow. And I know that my next piece for FPF is going to be on the state of Sydney FC and the Mariners campaigns. The Champions League window is about to open up again in this coming week. So I'm actually really kind of looking forward to cracking into it and seeing that competition kind of come alive. But it doesn't help that our clubs are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, the Mariners have been awful, especially at the Asian level, right?
It's just
and Sydney FC.
We're a salary capped league, and there's only so much squad depth you can apply to those competitions. Like you even see with teams, if you look at the starting lineups, you go, all right, Sydney FC and ditto to the Mariners. They're extremely competitive, should be extremely competitive against these sides. But it's that perspective of how many players you can have. It's one of the reasons why I think that the overruling the Caceres rule and maybe the Australian League starting to modernise in terms of their football economy is going to put Australian teams a little bit fairer stead. I think that a priority before the second division in the men's and before the expansion of the AFC Champions League in the women's, which will be coming next season, I believe, there's a expansion of that competition.
It already kind of did expand, so I'll have to honestly double check on what you mean there. But
maybe it is this season then. Maybe I'm mistaken in that. But I know that there was either.
But this is all the more reason why I'm confused. Is that the competition's just grown, and yet all the teams have reached the quarterfinal stage, and there's no date to confirm when it'll actually be drawn, let alone played. Like this is bizarre.
That's the AFC as well when it comes to, I think, just women's football as well. It's sort of
in general.
In general.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to take away from the incredible occasion that we'll have in 2026 hosting the Asian Cup, but I think
and a chance for Sydney just going wide. Ball coming in there, Shay Connors putting it wide by the head. Yes, continue. Sorry, Matt. I think you froze up there a bit, Matt. Those technical gremlins still hanging.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, am I back?
You're back and 100% here. The Gremlins have come out for the Unite round. Which I have to say, all in all...
The Unite round, Gremlins.
I have to say, I enjoyed it. As City able to get on the attack, that's going to go out for a corner. I'm just going to ask our streams a little bit more aligned here. I'm into the 60th minute. Melbourne City corner. I hope that we're sort of on the same page again. But it wouldn't be an FPF TV without some misaligned streams, I think. So as Bosch is going to put this one in for City, and it's just trickled wide. That header from Speckmeyer. Troubling delivery. And, geez, not a lot of tight marking there from Sydney FC, you have to say, defensively. But yeah, to your point, I think that the Asian Cup is certainly going to be a spectacle. Probably won't capture the imagination quite as well as the World Cup did. Um, but I'm still very much looking forward to it in 2026. As Melbourne City get back on the attack here. Ball launch forward. And Policina asks to chase that. But going out. When do you see Melbourne City and Machiziani going to his bench again? To maybe bring on the likes of, McKenna or Shelby McMahon? Do you see that they might have a little bit to say about this game as they go on the attack, Matt?
I got to be honest with you, Jack. I'm not really catching you. I don't know whether it's the Gremlins that are sticking around or not, but I've not really got any for what you said. Do think Melbourne City have shown a better intensity, though. Much better quality of play, and that chance that they just had a minute or two ago now.
Trying to get that.
I think that they're looking a bit odds on to take control of this one if they can just show a bit more with those attacks. Ultimately, I think what they're doing with the ball for the
lifted in there, just couldn't quite get a hold of it. You're hearing me loud and clear.
Yeah, Matt? Yeah, you're broken up a bit. Am I coming through okay?
You're coming through fine.
Yeah, you're all right. Am I coming through?
You're coming through great. As City, there's a chance here. And just bumbling out of the box. Sydney FC holding on thus far. I have to say, it's been quite an open match. Not a lot of fouls as well, as we just see the ref sort of letting this one go. In both halves, it's been, a bit physical. Bit of physical match. Matt, I wanted to get your opinion on that, because I think we sort of got into it, and then we got interrupted, by some football that is currently being played at Jubilee. But do you have any expectations for the next season? Like, I wanted to bring this conversation. It might be a conversation for a different day. And it is probably a little bit more pertinent to the men's game than it is to the women's game. But the opening up of that Caceres rule, the FA having a review into the transfer policy that's currently implicated in the A-Leagues. And then you said, obviously, sort of plugging a future article that you're currently in the middle of writing that will be available on frontpage.net, so frontpagefootball.net, so check that out when it does come out. Plenty of other good articles on there too. All across the Unite round had plenty of representation from the organisation in Sydney. But do you see any maybe alterations to the salary cap, or how transfers happen to Australia to come out of this review coming in next season? Is there anything that you can maybe possibly put your finger on as like sort of a prediction? Or
I think ultimately, given the nature of sort of the broadcast deal and the budget cuts that have had to occur in this climate, very hard to tell what's going to happen from a salary cap point of view or a product. But specifically on the Caceres rule point that you're making, obviously the repeals were put in place after the decision was reversed after the whole fiasco with Alex Paulson. And I think that ultimately, when we look at Melbourne City's kind of wayward era that they're having at the moment, and the fact that their period of dominance was completely quashed by the Mariners, that to me suggested that the league was still doing its job correctly, that things were working, that a system that we had to kind of quell and establish dominance from any of our teams, it was still very much par for the course, and it was still very much doing its job. I can recall around the time City were in that grand final, the first grand final of the Mariners, and I was doing the grand final podcast in Adelaide with Christian. And I said to him, my issue going forward is if we've seen Melbourne City make 3 straight grand finals, one of them that they did lose to Western, this other grand final against the Mariners, if we see them establish their dominance so much so that they're basically guaranteed to play in a grand final, for the better part of half a decade now. Is this going to be a point where we go, well, why even have the salary cap if City have already established their dominance? Now, that conversation ended up being completely thrashed in a very open way by the fact that it was the score of that grand final was 6-1. I mean, Melbourne City's dominance ended in Parramatta that night, right? And we went about our lives, realizing that the protection was in there to help teams who are struggling bounce back up and the teams that are at the top to not be too competitive. And we're just being honest. Look at the rebound that the Mariners went through at the start of the decade to then be in that position. Look at how Melbourne City are a bit of a mess right now at the men's level. Look at how these women's teams still have an established dominance, but then you have a story like the Jets. They get one good player in Serena Bolton. They're playing in a semi-final. The Mariners playing in a semi-final. I mean, there was a lot there that really ended up sparking this really open discourse and an open conversation. And I think that so as long as the system is maintained and so as long as the governance is maintained the way it is, and all of us hate it, but if it's part of the course and it ends up staying that way, the salary cap and all matters of finance have to stay the way they are, because ultimately the on-field product is working.
And
I don't know where you stand on that.
There, I'll get into it because I think there's a duality to this conversation that because I know that we're using the salary cap and it is from like the salary cap as it is mainly from a A-League men's perspective, as Hawkesby had another chance from outside the box there that just went to the left hand side of the post. I will start with the men's. I feel like that the Australian football economy needs to modernise because of the decline in broadcast revenue. I think that fees being exchanged by players between A-League clubs needs to be brought in. I think that the salary cap in general should stay the way it is, at least until Australian football is in some sort of position where promotion can be achieved instead of expansion via bidding processes. And that's well and truly on its way with the second division coming in. And I know it's only a Champions League model for the first season, but given that there are 8 clubs who are financially deemed by the FA, able to have a full home and away season, and maybe there might be the expansion process, instead of occurring at an A-League level, might be occurring at a second division level into the future. That's yet to be seen. I think there's a lot of unknowns still, but I think the first and foremost, you can keep the salary cap, but why not have a cap on fee spending as well and allow A-League teams to exchange fees for players, where you see the likes of, for example, an Archie Goodwin transfer to Adelaide United has a fee attached to it, where the Jets can benefit from producing the talent of Archie Goodwin. And, we've seen flashes of his brilliance in this Unite round as well, scoring the winner for Adelaide United just yesterday. So, and then from the women's perspective, I feel like we've seen a historic dominance by Sydney FC, Victory, Melbourne City, it's escaping me the other one who's well and truly in the top 4 most years.
Western would be...
Western, yes, there we go. Thank you so much. Since they've come into it, there's a lot of players who just end up going off contract and going to a bigger club, where smaller teams, for the likes of Hannah Lowry, for example, which was a star in Perth Glory, transferring directly to Sydney FC, and then Speckmeyer from Wellington Phoenix going directly to Melbourne City with no fee attached. I feel like those bigger clubs who do, can really maintain the top of the cap in terms of salaries in both leagues, should be helping out those smaller clubs, because they're no longer being supported by the league, as this looks like. I think that is Hannah Lowry that is down. Did you
see? Was it Shay Connors just? Let me get that right. I think it was Shay Connors just randomly had a bit of a flop there before that prior chance.
I'm not too sure. I actually didn't say that one, but Lowry looks in some sort of way. The Sydney FC players have surrounded her. Ooh, that does not look good. Looks like as she was running, like her knee sort of buckled from under her.
She just got picked for the Matildas. This is awful.
Yeah, that's not good at all. And we know the dangers that especially the women's players are with knee injuries, more specifically ACL injuries.
Right.
That's not good. I might just listen into the commentary here. She is back on her feet. That doesn't look good at all. I know that she's gotten up and she's been able to walk herself off the pitch, but we saw, Teo just mentioned over the comments, that we saw Tash Pryor having to come off in the first half of the Jets as well, with what looked to be a lower limb injury. And that doesn't look good. Just in the manner she sort of collapsed to the ground. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully it's nothing more serious than maybe like shock from her leg collapsing under her, but that did not look good at all.
Yeah.
Just in the manner she stayed down as well. She did not move as soon as she went down onto the turf. I'll try and wrap up that conversation we were having before. I think there is a earnest to try and get a fee cap so that clubs can exchange fees. Smaller clubs can hand out 3 or 4 year contracts more readily to both women's and men's players, and fees to be exchanged between clubs. But that's my personal opinion. That does not look good at all, does it?
Even the way she was huddling after the fact, it's quite. Yeah, that.
It's dubious, to say the least. That's not good.
I'd be really, really worried. I don't think she's going to be in that 36-player squad now.
No. Look, I've seen ACL and MCL injuries before, and usually the players can walk off the pitch. But it just didn't look good at all.
No. I think you're right though. I think the initial kind of huddling down, kind of face down on the ground, I think a lot of that was probably initial shock from that kind of sensation of your leg just going quite light underneath her. But it just did not look good at all.
No, let's
I mean, fuck me.
Her international career, and also for Sydney FC's campaign. Let's just hope for those reasons, and because it would be a shame to not be able to see the likes of Hannah Lowry play
against Chinese Taipei as well.
Yeah. That would be definitely an opportunity for her to play for the national team. Let's just hope it's not too serious. Alright, Sydney have made some changes. Shea Holman coming on for Lowry, and Lichmeyer coming on for Connors up front there. So TJ Vlanich with this free kick opportunity. I'll finish that conversation there about transfer policy and get back into the football, I think. So that ball swung in and comfortably gathered by Ryan Edwards. We'll try and get an update. And Holman able to put the ball forward. Lichmeyer.
Goodness.
Yeah, that's not good. You don't like to see that.
No, it's actually just really taken away the appetite for the rest of the game.
It really has. Sure. It actually reminds me, I was at the game at Number 2 Sports Ground last year when unfortunately McNamara went down with a really, really disappointing and upsetting injury. I hate it. Watching the dub, just knowing the biological reasons for those types of injuries for women's footballers, especially. Yeah. You just, every time they go down, especially in the manner that Lowry goes down, you sort of cringe, like it's...
Yeah. It's very difficult to watch, it is.
And it's, I think the most concerning thing, especially those challenges, and it happened with McNamara last season, not a lot of contact. You know, not a physical challenge. Similar to that challenge. I think it might have been in round 4 or 5 of the A-League women's season last year. That McNamara went down. When you see those injuries happen, when there's not a lot of contact, you just always, it's sort of heart in mouth. But we'll push forward through the stream. Hopefully we might get an update, and hopefully it's a positive update for Lowry and for the Matildas and for Sydney FC as well. And it has taken a little bit of a sting out of the match as well. Just on the field, though. I think both players equally concerned.
Yeah, the game has really, really slowed down as well.
Let's hope it picks back up in the last 13 minutes. A really decent crowd down there at Jubilee Stadium. The Cove showing up for the women's match as well.
Not sure how that MacArthur and Auckland game is going crowd-wise, but I know that Wellington victory didn't look too flash.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation, and I was going to save it for full time, but just as the game sort of, I suppose both players get a little bit more of a handle, picks up again. The Unite round, in its sort of, I suppose, what it does is a football carnival in one city. From a fan perspective, I think it's any fan who has attended Unite round has had nothing bad to say about it. To be able to watch the amount of football, for people who can't quite get to multiple away days, the ability to travel. But, just in the current, I suppose, state of the A-League, probably not something that other cities are going to purchase in the future. That's yet to be seen. There's still technically another year of the Destination New South Wales deal. Obviously, it was a shoe-in replacement. Isn't it 3 years?
Yeah, exactly. So we had the Mariners and City Grand Final, and then we had Unite Round across 4 venues, and now we've had Unite Round across 2 venues.
So whether it continues, that's another thing as well. What kind of governments? I'd like to see it. If it does continue, I'd like to see it go to Adelaide next. I think that the stadiums on offer in Adelaide, the likes of Service FM Stadium and also Coopers, the size of the stadiums, I think that if you're going to have a Unite round, you probably won't get as much money for the league from South Australian government. There has to be an appetite for it, of course, for the event. But if the A-League can target Adelaide, that's where I'd be going next for this.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the fact that they've already got Gather Round as well, I'd be very sceptical about the government really wanting to buy into something that they can't prove will work. But I'm just think purely from a fan's perspective, Coopers is the stadium where you want to hold something like that. That festival of just like 6 games, two games a night, that would actually be really idealistic.
Well, I got to say, obviously the women's matches as well were supposed to be played at Leichhardt Oval, and the Oval, I mean, the surface that was being teed up for the Sydney FC players was not only abysmal for football, but it was actually extremely dangerous, for the players as well. Sydney FC released a statement saying that they refuse to play there until Leichhardt Oval's surface improves. For the majority of the season, which could see their women's team play at Jubilee,
going forward.
Yeah, going forward for the rest of the season.
Well, let's not forget, Sydney FC are still very actively using Jubilee as a ground because it's got the ACL2 fixtures are being hosted at Jubilee.
Yeah, there are some other venues in Sydney that are well connected as well, like Belmore is another candidate as well. I know Allianz for the Sydney Derby, you've got to use Allianz. It's always going to get a decent enough crowd where Allianz is going to be in play. 30,000 people last night. I made a little bit of an impromptu comment in the group chat going, this crowd doesn't look too good. And then by the time full time, it swelled. So congratulations to the both supporters group. Maybe not.
And also, I think people were wondering why there were 2 derbies so soon back to back before we even hit, round 5 or 6.
And I think also the F3 derby. I mean, there was actually a pretty... I will say, in comparison to the crowd numbers of last year's Unite round, 6,000 or 7,000 people we haven't seen our 3 derbies get ahead of the 7,000 spectator mark in recent years.
Okay.
So in terms of the travelling support and also the neutral support for that derby in the stadium on that day on Friday evening, from both the remnants of the Perth Glory supporters and Western United, and also the neutrals who went along as well. It was a pretty decent crowd, but look, it sort of, to me, screams as like, you know, maybe Belmore's a more suitable venue if you were to continue in Sydney. But again, like we said, Adelaide, I think...
Is Belmore, you'll have to excuse my ignorance, but is Belmore accessible?
Via train, yes. Belmore is right near Belmore, like pretty much right near the train station. Obviously the home of Sydney Olympic, as it stands, in the NPL New South Wales. Well-equipped stadium. It's got its hill. There's a variety of food trucks usually when games are being played at that venue. As my colleague Matt Olsen does the do.
Hosts a bit of NRL footy as well, doesn't it, Belmore? Like 2 or 3 games a season.
Few Canterbury Bulldogs Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs games in the NRL. Excuse me. So, yeah, whether this product continues into the future, like from a football fan's perspective, I think it's a resounding success because it's thoroughly enjoyable. I went along to the dub yesterday. I was planning to go to Leichhardt Oval. In paid entry, but it was free entry into Jubilee. And it's a well-appointed stadium, Jubilee, as well. So I enjoyed my time out there. In Allianz, though, it was quite an empty cauldron, which, I feel like you've got to be a little bit more strategic. But it is what it is. It was brought in as a replacement of the grand final deal for Destination New South Wales, and we'll have to see if it continues into the next season. As a long-range speculative effort comes in from Sydney FC as we approach the 83rd minute mark. That one from Shea Holman. From about 40 yards out.
RIP microphone.
Matt Olsen
I'm going to use this one. It's served me very well over the past 4 years.
Yes. So. Rip Matt Olsen's microphone. There's been some casualties in this Unite round. Not least the technical gremlins at the start of the stream, and obviously Matt Olsen's microphone. But it's good. Speckmeyer putting a ball ahead of Briley Henry.
Do you know what's really embarrassing? Do you know how it broke? I'll just show you on camera the whole... It literally snapped off and broken up, and now it's all muffled in here and all got dirt in it and stuff.
Well,
but I'm not joking. I when I go off to work and then have some football work at the end of my night, I usually just pack all of my essentials that I would use, even if I'm not necessarily recording. I just have the microphone there in case I want to listen to some audio or something, and it's just nicer to have the headphones through the microphone than directly through the laptop and things like that. Like I don't know. I just like to be very kind of mindful of how I kind of have everything together. And it was just rustling around for long enough in my bag that it literally just, I don't know whether it hit something that I also had in my bag on the night or what. It just completely fucking broke off what was in my bag. And to be fair, the quality of it had deteriorated. I'm guessing the warranty on it is well past and that it's only really designed to last for 3 or 4 years. And so it ran its course. I can easily get it replaced. But the fact that it just snapped in my bag is incredible.
Well, Matt Olsen is looking for sponsors, apparently, for his audio division. So check out Twitter post out. Get in contact. Get into his DMs.
Yeah, Audio Technica, hit us up, eh?
Yeah.
JBL? I'd do JBL. Where's my headphones?
Yeah, JBL. Anko. Where's the brand deals? Get the brand deals going. Very good. Very good. We're approaching the last 5 minutes of regular time, or we are in the last 5 minutes of regular time here. As McKenna came on for Policina there for Melbourne City, and that's all of their outfield substitutions. Only 4 outfield players allowed on A-League women's benches, for those who are not down with the dub and how it's played, which, to be honest, I'm not really a big fan of. I don't know why there's not extended benches in the A-League women's, but, that's my opinion. But, look, 1-1 has been a popular scoreline in this round of
Very popular.
A-League Women's. Obviously, 1-1 was the result in the earlier match today. Perth Glory, Canberra United seeing out that draw. And yesterday afternoon, both the Newcastle Jets, Western United, and also the Melbourne Victory and Central Coast Mariners game finishing up as 1-1 score lines. A really, really high-quality goal by Claudia Chico as well in that match yesterday. Really delightfully taken goal as Sydney try to break forward.
I was also quite happy to see Izzy Dalton on the scoreboard for Perth earlier today. Unfortunately, with their dominance, they couldn't hold on and get the result.
Yes.
Very positive sign for them, though.
Very positive sign. I thought Robertson had a really good performance. Young Robertson for Newcastle Jets in goals. There was a long-range strike, I believe, from, I think it was Lagazzo, that was looking like it was going to breach that top corner. And, you know, she isn't really the biggest goalkeeper in the league. Far from it. Just I suppose, the acrobatic measure of that save. That's definitely getting in the highlight reel, I think. Stott seeing that one over the sideline. And I think we said in the first half this might have been a game of moments. What do you think could break this one open? Is it going to be a dubious goal, you know, either something from outside the box or maybe a defensive mistake that leads to a possible winner here, Matt?
Yeah, I'm thinking just a moment of luck, one way or the other. A good attacking move to really just break hearts open. You know, I think both of these teams have it in them to just be really lethal and clinical, even with, you know, the changes that have been made.
And in the context, I think, of City's season, this might, if this result were to stand, it might be a little bit disappointing from Melbourne City, but maybe something that Sydney FC can take in confidence, I suppose, given the lackluster start to the season, to get a draw at home against the team of quality of Melbourne City.
Yeah, look, I think Sydney's expectation as always should be to win. And with that regard, I think that the draw, you can understand it, you understand where it's come from, and I think that they have improved and showed some improvement, but they shouldn't be in the position where they need to constantly improve. Do you know what I mean? I think that obviously something's got to give.
Well, it might be just one of those transition years we see from big teams. We don't see it often in the A-League Women's, more often in the A-League Men's, but maybe since the competition has definitely gotten a little bit more competitive. Of course, it's a top 6 now instead of a top 4. So it's not a very top-heavy competition anymore. There's talent all over the league. I mean, you alluded to this, both in the front page dub and then also the front page football podcast where there was preview action. I think you were involved in both of those podcasts, where there's some genuine talent all over the league in every single team, where no team looks like out-and-out wooden spooners and no team looks like a shoo-in for the top 6.
And you've got to say the start by Brisbane is probably case in point of that, right? Like, they're a team that I don't think that'll hold, but credit to Alex Smith, credit to the system that's been built and the talent that they can kind of, you know, have at their possession to be able to really take advantage of, you know, playing against Perth, playing against Canberra, being in a position where, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this result stands, Brisbane are going to end the weekend top.
Yeah, and that was quite an impressive display on that Friday night game against the Western Sydney Wanderers, who, to actually, you know, just contrary to the point I just made, I think Western Sydney Wanderers and their, apart from, you know, the likes of Harding, they've probably, on paper, might have close to the weakest program. I mean, there's...
Oh, look! I think that they've improved immensely, and they have it in them to be a top 6 team. They really do.
Oh,
I
they
think
all
that
do.
they've just fallen by the wayside a little bit. Look, Wellington. This is actually really a lot on the equalisation of the competition. Wellington got their win against Adelaide, and they're sitting in 11th. So
Yeah.
like that didn't even have much of an overall effect on them. There's a lot of quality split across the 12 teams.
Absolutely. I think we've gone through a lot of it. I mean, you know, Maya Markowski picking up an assist, continuing her attacking as the crowd rises. It's with McKenna. The ball goes in and just trickles along to the bad post. I think it was McKenna. It looked to be McKenna trying to find... Well, actually, it might have been Shea Holman trying to find I think McKenna might be off. What am I talking about here? No, sorry, Mackenzie Hawkesby, not McKenna. Goodness gracious me, I'm getting mixed up. It's been a long weekend. Let's just put it that way. We'll go through all the results in the full-time period as well from both the men's and women's competitions. We'll pick out a few interesting matchups, not the least of the Sydney Derby last night. A really dominant display by Brisbane Roar on Friday night against West Sydney Wanderers is definitely something to highlight. The shrew of 1-1 draws in the A-League Women's. I mean, that, again, proves the point that the dominance of the traditionally good teams is starting to weigh a little bit in the women's competition. I think that's a conversation that will be had by many in the space. As we're well and truly into the stoppage time now. 4 minutes has been allowed. We're up to just near the 92nd minute. As Melbourne City are able to get on the attack here. Maybe an Apostolakis couldn't quite get the power behind the strike there. Goes over for a goal kick. Chance there for Melbourne City. City are trying their best. A lot of players forward. Might be the case that City dominate the last period with the possession in their opponent's half. Maybe Sydney can try and fashion a transition opportunity. That's what it's looking like it's going to be as we head into the final minutes of A-League's Unite round for the A-League dub.
And it looks like in the men's, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to have a double look at this one, but Auckland are holding on for the win against MacArthur as well.
And
they'll be top without a goal conceded.
Top of the pops. There was a few predictions that saw, Auckland as maybe a dark horse for the top 4. I put them at 3rd in my pre-season predictions. And they've been good value. And looks like they're heading towards their first win in Australian soil in their club's history, which is, don't know if it's necessarily surprising, but it was always a point for their season if they could win over the pond, as it were, considering they've had a lot of games in New Zealand to open up the season. It's a bit of a rugby tackle there.
The only other, if you were, I hope you haven't looked at this. Do you know who the only other undefeated team is outside of Auckland?
Outside of Auckland? Ooh, undefeated. Sydney FC? In the men's? No, they lost. Ooh. It's not MacArthur. Phoenix?
No. This team is in 4th.
Sorry?
This team is in 4th.
In 4th. Western? Have they just been getting consistent draws?
No, it's not Western.
No, they lost against Adelaide. That's right. And that's it here at Jubilee. It's 1-1. A very popular scoreline for the A-League Women's Unite round at Jubilee Stadium. Concludes the proceedings here. A pretty entertaining 1-1. I think a little bit of the heat taken out of the game from that injury from Hannah Lowry. We'll have to listen in to see if we get any indications of the severity of that injury, especially considering that she has been called up to the Matildas 36-member squad for those upcoming international friendlies. But that's it. Unite round is done and dusted. And you're right, Matt. Auckland FC have hold on for that 1-0 victory. And can you please allude to the only team that is still undefeated?
Adelaide.
Wow, yeah, that's look, I had him in 10th, so, and that was an exciting proposition. We might run over this in full time to see some of the highlights of this one between Melbourne City and Sydney FC. But let's get to wrapping up this one first before we get into all of the action from the whole round. I think this game was certainly a game of moments. That Hawkesby strike, obviously, early on in the first half, and then the return by Bosch that just caught Brianna Edwards off guard. Matt, it's been an interesting matchup to say the least. I don't think any team really asserted dominance. I think City certainly were a bit more organised in possession and in transition, like we alluded to during the full-time whistle, but neither of the teams able to really stamp their authority on this one.
No, I think honestly, you take an even amount of pros and cons for either coach. I think Matriciani will notice that they were restricted quite heavily by Sydney. Um, and for Sydney's part, that's a fair chunk of possession and chances that they were able to create a better intensity, better aggression, but clearly still a lot missing. And I wonder if Hannah Larry's injury is actually going to be the kind of straw to, break the camel's back and enforce some sort of change that's actually going to get that team playing at a better tempo in a better system where they can play to their strengths more, because they still looked very lost throughout periods of that game. They showed a lot of positives. And I mean, they got the goal, albeit from, a very fortuitous and very messy, kind of setup for it. They scored the goal, and so that they've had that advantage taken away. And if anything, been a little bit frustrated by the fact that Bosch's shot wasn't even really one that should have been a goal as well. So, yeah, I think that probably encapsulates the contest we just saw. There's a lot of umming and ahhing, and how can we fix this? How can we make it better? Both teams lacked being at the full level necessary to be able to take all 3 points.
I think it's
And ultimately,
a theme.
that affects City far more than it does City.
I think it's a theme, actually. Just you're alluding to. From all the A-League women's matches I've seen in Unite round, especially this round, I've watched quite a bit of football this weekend. I've definitely put in my hours. No team in the entire round but Brisbane, in my opinion, has really, claimed, been assertive in the way that they've played and tried to stamp the sort of identity in the way they want to play. I think that's just been a theme that's carried over. Personally, I don't know if you've seen it that way, but I think this is well and truly the time to just have a look at the results of the entire round, as it were, as I try to get them up here. Obviously, we'll go back to the Friday night as soon as this webpage loads of this 1-1-1. Maybe we'll start off with the earlier match this afternoon, Canberra United coming against Perth Glory. That one also a share of a points with 1-1. Would you say that theme carried on into that match as well, the earlier one today?
No.
No?
Perth were far better, and honestly should have, while they had the opportunity, taken a 2-0 lead. I think that's very unsuspecting that Stephen Peters, far better lineup, best lineup he's had. Megan Wynn finally got her start, and they should have taken the 3 points. It's actually a disappointing result from a Perth perspective, and it's crazy that we're reflecting on that, but especially given Canberra have been a little bit exposed in some of their hype early on, I would say. Realistically, I mean, we should be looking at especially with that drawn result, we should be looking at a Perth team that's actually sitting 6th or 7th right now. So, sorry, I'm not really going to play to it being a bit of, toing and froing. Perth were very, very good today and should have taken the points.
Fair enough. Well, let's have a look at Friday night then, and we'll get to Saturday before we have a look at the men's results. We'll key on a few results. I think Wellington 1-0 against Adelaide United. I didn't personally catch this one in full, and I have not seen the highlights, but Wellington getting their first points of the season, sitting at 11th, their first 3 points against an Adelaide United team who, so far, in the dub, have been pretty good value. So that's a bit of a scalp, you might say, from Wellington Phoenix. Am I going too far?
Yeah, I think obviously it is probably the way that Paul Temple's going to be picking up a lot of points this season. Very kind of reliant on being very creative, but also really a lot of that creation coming from, the opposition showing a bit of a kind of fraught and stagnant nature. And for that reason, I wonder if Wellington are going to be quite good against the likes of Sydney FC and City if they play similarly to the way that they played this afternoon. I think this Wellington team has a lot of potential to unlock. I think they can be a top 6 team, like any team in this competition. But yeah, they're not always going to be able to perform at that level. I feel like their terms are dictated it more often than not in how their opposition play a lot of the time. I mean, they're off the back of losing to the Jets and in a really tight kind of cagey game, and a similar kind of dynamic played out, but they were very attacking, and it was nice to see that attacking expression from a team that has lost Mariana Speckmeyer in the season just prior to be able to really open up. Olivia Ferguson's finally come out as someone that's been exciting to see. So, Yeah, so I was quite happy for Wellington to pick that up. And of course, they had their big corner of yellow, and Paul Temple was, you know, getting around it with all the Welly fans and the girls. So yeah,
Yeah,
fair play to them.
the little corner of yellow. They always seem to travel wherever they go, and there was some decent support for both the Wellington fans at both matches over the Unite round. So credit to them coming across the pond and giving a good showing for their players. Let's look at the Brisbane Roar Western Sydney result. Obviously a Western Sydney home game, sorry, so it should be Western Sydney Wanderers versus Brisbane Roar, but a 4-0 result for Brisbane, which sits them atop of the table in front of Melbourne City at the moment. A very impressive break by Momo Hayashi with Tameki Yallop and Pringle also getting on the scoreline there. Yallop extending her goal-scoring abilities in the A-League Women's, obviously having a tremendous career at this level. I think she's the 4th all-time goal scorer, maybe 3rd. I think I saw it pop up the other day in a stat, but still continuing her quite impressive goal scoring. But look, I mean, that Brisbane Roar side looks extremely good. So far undefeated. And, maybe one of those dark horses that could break the stranglehold that the likes of City, Western United, Sydney FC, and Victory have had on that top 4, do you think?
I think it's all dependent on Tameki Yallop's position in the midfield being really crucial. Another experienced campaigner in Sean Fryer up top there for them. And of course, Hayashi, the Japanese recruit who scored both scored a brace on the night as well. I think you've got a team ultimately that I guess they have a very clear game plan through some of their more crucial players, and I just wonder again, similar probably dynamic to Adelaide in the A-League men's, where they've looked good, but who's the caliber of opponent that they've played? Is it a kind of situational basis where they've looked better? Are they able to capitalise on their opponents and the way that they're playing? And I would say on the whole, there's probably still a bit of convincing to do with Brisbane, but this was an opportunity where they're at their absolute best, and the Wanderers didn't show up at all. So they were as clinical as they needed to be, and they look very, very good in the capable hands of someone like Tameki Yallop.
Absolutely, and just some upcoming matches for Brisbane here. Obviously, they had that really good win against Perth Glory in the previous round. A win also against the likes of Sydney FC. But they did open their account with a loss to... No, they didn't. Yes, they did. A loss to Canberra United, 3-2. Just getting the results up now. But so maybe a little bit less convincing, but they do sit second on the table. But they do have some, I would say some troubling opposition upcoming. Maybe Wellington less than of the Central Coast, who so far the Central Coast have been pretty good value, I think, in their matches. Which might be a good transition to talk about that result in Unite round. Of course, the Central Coast Mariners sharing points in another 1-1 draw with Melbourne Victory. A late goal by the Kayla Morrison, just pushing the hashtag Tilly's Kayla movement a little bit forward, putting a little bit more pressure on the powers that be to get her into that squad. Matt, did you take this match in, and what did you think of this one?
Maybe a bit disappointing from a Victory perspective. I think would probably be the main takeaway. I mean, I know the Mariners can be kind of clinical at times, but this was a day where I think Victory were easily the better team on paper, and their creation was just restricted a bit too much to the point where they couldn't really establish their dominance. They also went behind early, which didn't help matters. But yeah, I think you play that game, 50 to 100 times, Victory are going to win it the overwhelming majority of times. You know what I mean? So probably just a bit of a luckier one on the Mariners side. But again, I think it's just the unpredictable nature of the league, and you'd be happy and I think satisfied with the fact that there's a bit of a narrative to take away from that, even if certain stages of that game got a little bit tiring and a little bit boring.
And then,
but yeah.
Maybe the pick of the goals, you got to say. That 1-1 draw, Western United, Newcastle Jets, Claudia Chico outside the box, nestles it into the goal. Like just a wonderfully worked chance, and then for Chico to come on first time with the right boot, put it in the bottom corner. You just thought the Jets, I think, just watching it in transition, the Jets were really, really dangerous. The likes of, the pace of sort of like Allen, And Sheridan Gallagher as well, being able to... She's just really good at holding up the ball. Obviously, a very physical striker. And allowing those really quick wingers just to get further ahead and expand the Newcastle Jets play the way I saw that one. But then an equally tremendous strike, if not more, by Grace Maher to lock that one up in the 80th minute. And sharing points. That was a very good value draw, I think, for both teams. I don't think... I think based on the balance of play from what I've seen, there was a save penalty by Tiana Robertson and another spectacular acrobatic save to claw one out of the top corner in the first half as well. So maybe Western United might come out of that feeling a little bit deflated, but there was a few chances, I think a few in-behind chances by the likes of Sheridan Gallagher that should have been put away. I think that maybe on the wings, the Jets are a little bit timid. Once they did get far and ahead of the Western United, I don't know if I call it a full press, maybe a half press into the midfield. They looked a little bit exposed. But all in all, as far as the 1-1 draws go that have been just a common occurrence throughout this round, I think that was the most exciting of them. Some really good goalkeeping from both keepers, to be fair, and some spectacular goals there.
I think Western will want to hold themselves to a higher standard in terms of the results and the output so far, but otherwise it was an incredible game. And I think you really ought to give it to the Jets for the level that they're bringing. We always kind of expected the Jets to be in and around. I don't think anyone expected the Jets to be like a bad team, really, on paper. So to see some of their edge in a game like this is important, but I think Western will need more and want more. Who have they got next? They've got Sydney next, which is
that's going to be a
Sydney just keep getting these banger games, in their unfolding narrative as well.
Well, again, the unfolding narrative. Sydney will see that sort of game as almost a must win for them, and Newcastle almost as a free hit, you could say. Against a side.
Sorry, that's Western against Sydney.
Sorry, Western against Sydney. I'm trying to pull up the Newcastle Jets. Currently, my webpage's not working, so I'm at the. The Benos to the app at the moment. I'm just having a look ahead at Newcastle Jets. They're taking off Adelaide. That'll be an extremely interesting game at Service FM Stadium, especially considering Adelaide's recent run of form. They did not come away with any points in Unite round, but they might consider that a game that they should be winning at home, and the Newcastle Jets as well will go in there, I think, with a little bit of confidence as well, with their abilities up front. Sheridan Gallagher is now starting games, which was a coup back from the Newcastle Knights in the NRLW. And I'll just have a little quick of the ladder, because it is an interesting ladder from a league that's extremely competitive, especially between the positions of about 5th all the way down to 12th. Brisbane, like we said, not far and away, but ahead on top of the table on 9 points, with Melbourne City closely followed on 8. Melbourne Victory filling out the 3rd position with 7 points. Canberra United sitting at 4th as it stands, with Adelaide United behind them at 5th. And the Central Coast Mariners rounding out the top 6 on 6 points. Newcastle Jets sitting at that 7th position on equal points with Western United, who sit 8th. Sydney FC sitting 9th as it stands on only 4 points, with Perth Glory at 10th on goal difference, with Wellington and on 3 points at 11th, and Western Sydney Wanderers nestled at the bottom of the table in 12th. Let's have a look at the men's action. We did a fantastic show in the women's game, but let's just have a run through of that result. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, Matt, because it might be a difficult subject, but a 3-1 victory for Western United in that opening match of the Unite round in the men's competition. It looks like Perth Glory might be heading towards their first points of the season early on with an early goal. Oh, not an early goal. A goal to Trent Osler, I think, in the second half there. But it was Hiroshi Ibasuki whose brace really decided that one. And also a Dylan Leonard goal that was good value as well. Zrilic would be under a little bit of pressure now. I don't know if there's any danger of getting rid of him, but the results just aren't coming for Perth.
No, I just think that it's what's frustrating about it is probably the fact that the immediate comment out of the way that this Perth team was performing was to look at a game like this where you're playing a lower caliber of opponent, and like when you play these caliber of teams, this is where we need to see your absolute best, and we just didn't. So like, yeah. What
Yeah,
more can you say but just be extremely dissatisfied with the caliber of performances that you're seeing from Glory at the moment? It's just disgusting and disrespectful.
well, quite some harsh words, but let's hope for the league's case and also Perth Glory fans' case they turn it around. The F3 derby played on the Friday evening at 8 p.m. in Allianz. 2-1 victors were the Central Coast, who have gotten their first win in quite some time now in all competitions. They sit 8th as a result of that win. The Newcastle Jets taking the lead through a Tommy Aquilina goal. That was a brilliant transition move, a little dink by Ben Gibson, but Caltech and own goal by Kankar it was, I believe, in that one, deciding that one in Allianz. I mean, it was sort of a match where the Newcastle Jets might have taken a little bit more confidence, seeing the sort of stuttered start that the Mariners had to their season in all competitions. But the Newcastle Jets, I mean, we saw it pretty regularly last season, taking early-ish leads in the game. I mean, this is at the 65th minute, but taking leads in games and then ended up dropping points by the end of them. There was a stat that came out last season that if you took all of the games when it came to first goal scorers or leading at half-time, the Jets would have been first in those results if they carried through the full time. And it's a symptom of Robbie Stanton's team that's sort of carried on in season 24-25.
I think the biggest takeaway from this is that, like, the Mariners, for a winning team, did not put in a winning performance. And it's quite a fortunate way for Mark Jackson's team to pick up their first kind of 3 points of the season. It's done a bit of a wonder for them on the table as well, being only 3 points off the 6 now. So, yeah, definitely an extremely frustrating night if you're a Jets fan. I wouldn't be too comfortable, watching that play out and thinking that, this was a game that, we lost on paper, because you didn't, So...
Look at I've never seen an own goal celebrated quite as intensely as Ryan Edmondson, and it was actually Shushtanai, my apologies to Philip Kankar, that scored that own goal, running into the crowd, celebrating with the fans. A little bit of spice to a derby, you like to see it. I think Ryan Edmondson, he might not be top of the pops when it comes to goals, but when it comes to shithousery, he's definitely amongst the league leaders in that. We'll quickly pivot to the opening match of the Saturday at Allianz Stadium. Brisbane Roar, Adelaide United, finished 3-2 in favour of Adelaide United. A bit of an open-ended match, but we've seen in the last couple of weeks, Brisbane Roar, their ability to score goals is there, but their ability to have a sort of an organised defence and resistance to attacking sides it's just not coming together for Ruben Zakovic's side at this present time.
No, and again, I think similar to the Jets, where, you wouldn't have thought that they put in a really terrible performance, but they actually, I think where the situation is different is that they really let this one slip through their own kind of mentality and their own approach to the game. Adelaide, you're going to have to give them credit for the way that they picked up the points, but Brisbane really, as that game grew on, were quite dismal. And I don't think anyone's really going to sit here and try and defend Brisbane or say that, they've got a better team on paper, because they really, that was awful. It was awful to kind of witness that. And Adelaide will be really happy and stoked in the position that they're in. But if you're asking me, that's a position that flatters Adelaide a lot. And I think a game like this is the reason why they're in the position that they're in, being, 4-1-0 at this point. So. And
just a quick shout out from one Nova Cash into another. Good to see Archie Goodwin get a decent amount of minutes and then score a goal that led to the winning points for Adelaide United. Always good to see a fellow Nova Cash doing well wherever he or she is playing. Now, to probably the biggest game of the round, well, definitely the biggest game of the round, the Sydney Derby last night. 30,000 people packed Allianz Stadium for this one. 4-2 victors were Sydney FC. Western Sydney Wanderers, I think, would be extremely disappointed with their form in the first 5 rounds of this season. Currently, I mean, you're sort of looking for answers, and there was a little bit of spice heading into this derby. You had some comments by Fahid Ben Kafala about the use of Juan Mata in the Western Sydney Wanderers side, something that was addressed in the post-match presses. You also had the players playing golf in the lead-up to the match, and then Joe Lolly at the opening goal, I suppose, paying homage to that sort of blow-up on the online, the Twitter spheres, with this celebration there. But I mean, Western Sydney Wanderers, their ability to score goals, I think, is well and truly there, but their ability to hold results or even just sort of bludgeon teams and contain them is really lacking. And I think that out of all the managers in both leagues, Stajic is certainly, I think, under the most pressure in terms of his standing as a head coach.
Yeah, look, the Wanderers have really regressed to the mean in terms of what we can expect from them, and it's disheartening because when are things ever going to change for that organization? Like they always every season there's a lot of promise, there's good starts, and they just always boil down to just whether they're making the finals or not. They just boil down to just being so incredibly mid and so incredibly disappointing on every front.
Well,
And
you can
it
see
would
it
be
in the.
very, very disheartening for the way that result happened to then look at it and want to feel the need to really ask some big questions. I think, yeah, Wanderers fans have a right to be very pissed off.
Before we move on to like Sydney FC's performance, which was really really impressive from an attacking perspective,
Mm.
like the apathy is not just leeching. Like the apathy's there in the squad and has been there for a number of years now, you know. But it's leeching into their fan base as well. You know, a team that even in the worst of times when it comes to A-League crowds, were averaging around 9-10,000, and they do have 20,000 members. Like that's an actual statistic, and people are paying and then not showing up. That's a really big indicator of where the club's at. A huge indicator that against the Newcastle Jets on a primetime Friday night kickoff, and say what you will about the Friday night A-League kickoffs in terms of crowd numbers, I'm not going to look too much into it from a league perspective, but in terms of a club like the Western Sydney Wanderers, the place they are in terms of locality, to have 7,000 people turn up for that, I know that they showed up for the derby, and credit to the supporters then, but that is a huge indicator of how the supporters perceive it, especially when the Wanderers ran out runaway winners in that previous match. But I'll pivot now to Sydney FC. My player of the match was Wahim. He was absolutely incredible. And he has been incredible the last couple of rounds, but well and truly, like, he is an absolute star. And what a pickup for Sydney FC to have someone of that quality. I mean, Douglas Costa, I think, played his part in this game as well, but Wahim, like, the ability, he has that low centre of gravity midfielder to shrug off players. Say what you will about, I think it was the third, no, not the third goal. It was the fourth goal, Patrick Klimala, about the defending. You know, you sort of have to be stronger there. But the way he's able to shrug off defenders, his ability to turn in those tight spaces, he is such an impressive prospect.
Sydney have a lot of incredible talent, and they're a good team, and they're going to be a force. But there is something missing that's making them like top tier at the moment, and that is where I get really curious when I see the likes of Wickham and Joe Lolly just putting in these incredibly great performances. Alfie being a very settled coach, very experienced. What's actually missing with this team? Because they're sitting in sixth, you know? Take nothing away from the way they're playing, because I think it's really good and it's really positive. But what is also missing there, you know?
To be fair, I'll get, maybe it's a little bit more fairness. I mean, there's buys and all this stuff here, but the league leaders in Auckland, who we'll get to in a little bit, and you know we didn't watch that performance, but we'll just quickly gloss over it. 12 points, 4 wins from 4 matches, right? It looks like that you know, the A-League as well, like the difference, the gap in quality between those teams who are pushing for top 6 representation, and maybe there's a few teams that have really underperformed in terms of expectation. There are teams who have overperformed so far in terms of expectation. But the gulf in quality thus far is there, right? So Sydney being in 6th, they look a treat. Like, especially in the last 2 games in terms of their attacking potential. But it's just weird to see him in 6th, considering the vibe that you sort of get from watching that team. They look spectacular. They look absolutely spectacular. Box office style of play. And to be, sort of languishing in 6th I think it's a big...
And I mean, you look at the style of the 2 games that they've lost that's put them in 6th. MacArthur needed one of the all-time great A-League goals and a 96th minute winner to get past them. Yeah. Auckland also won it at the 96th minute as well with, you know, the
and it was a dubious back
handball from Blind.
Yeah, a little dubious back heel.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, there is probably a bit of like unfortunate circumstances that are the reason they're down so low. But I think it also probably speaks to a team like Adelaide that's overperforming in fourth as well. And
Yeah.
you can make of that what you will. But yeah, it's just funny because I think this Sydney team are very clearly a championship contender, perhaps even the championship contender to be, yeah, Jack, I'm doing it. Grand final at the moment looks like Auckland versus Sydney. So, that
Well,
is all
actually,
the more reason.
that's a
Yeah.
big indication because rarely do we see like a first second grand final in the A League. Sometimes like the fourth team will just sneak in there, mid their way through the final series and end up lifting a trophy at the end of it, which is just can only happen in Australian football.
Yeah,
But
100%.
like Sydney FC, like when they're on, they are so on, like
Mm.
ridiculously on, and they conceded 2 goals, which I think that Uffy will look at and go, okay, that's a little bit, worrisome because, as we've said, Western Sydney Wanderers are really lacking a certain touch of class in many areas at the moment. But yeah, when they're on, they're just a delight to watch, and I actually really, really enjoyed that Sydney derby from a neutral perspective. The style of football, like every time I saw him get on the ball, like getting forward, even Ryan Grant, like some of his runs down the right hand side were really impressive, and that interplay between Douglas Costa, who was sort of positioned in the number 10, switching sort of side to side across, and then cutting back in. It was just all in all, like I thoroughly enjoyed that game, like just from a neutral perspective. But we'll move on to the rest of the results. Costa Barbarouses getting Wellington Phoenix a win, their first win. Is it their first win of Australian soil? No, probably not. Oh, I probably got that wrong. Anyway, we'll move on. Wellington Phoenix sitting in second. It is the Australasian League, technically. We call it the Australian A-League, but there are some New Zealander teams, and they are dominating at this. Well, not dominating, but they are the top two teams in the league at the moment. And Costa Barbarouses is a centre striker. The redefining of his position up front is just working an absolute treat. It was working an absolute treat last season, and it's continued into this season.
This was Chiefy Harambol at its absolute best.
Yeah.
I mean, just victory found a way through, the Phoenix defense, but the chance creation lacked. And then you saw that those one or two clinical chances. I mean, what did they have? 6 shots for the whole game? Maybe 8. Ashige was brilliant. I know that much.
Yeah.
But it's just what Chiefy does, man. Like this team is just so frustrating and so good when they're at their most frustrating. 6. They had 6 shots, and what do you know? The one from Costa to win it was the only one on target. Like that's just it's what they do. So yeah, if there's any more reason for someone like me who's been critical of them to really dislike them, this is case in point. Like Harambol doing what it does. Fair play the tacticos that absolutely, lose it at Leafy Bowl.
Shout
I
out
get it.
Christian Marchetti and Jake Holub.
Yeah, I get it, but I also
heads
just
of the Chafee Ball fan club.
yeah when this era of the Phoenix kind of opens up a bit more, or